Creed 3. I have been a big fan of the Rocky movies for a while. I remember I've seen Rocky 1 years and years and years ago. Obviously, it's a classic. Everyone loves Rocky. The original Rocky's a really great film, and it's not even really a boxing film. It's really just it's a drama. It's a drama about a guy who falls in love with this girl and then just gets a million and one shot and then makes the most of it. It's the ultimate underdog story, and I think that's why so many people respond so much to that film. And then even like Rocky 2 I love. Rocky 2's kind of the same movie as Rocky 1, just Rocky wins at the end. But I do think they give it a fun twist where it's kind of like after, because in screenwriting classes, a lot of them they'll say, when you write a story, write the biggest event that can possibly ever happen to this character. Write the most important day of their life. And Rocky 2 is kind of like, so what happens after the most important day of your life happens? And I think it does a pretty interesting job of kind of showing that, where it's like, it shows how he kind of becomes a star, how he gets into all of these like ad deals and becomes, how that kind of like changes him as a person, how it changes his relationship to, is it not Talia? Adrian. How it changes his relationship to Adrian and his friends and his family, and does that. And then obviously the catharsis of him winning at the end does feel really good. It really does. Rocky 3 with Mr. T is a better movie than it probably should be. I remember it being incredibly short, but like, it's kind of like the point in Rocky's career where he is just top of the world, and then he's kind of just resting on those laurels, and what happens when someone that's just legitimately better than you comes along, and how you deal with that and how you try and best that. Rocky 4 is obviously where the franchise takes quite a turn into stopping being anything remotely realistic. It has a robot in it. The movie's about 60% just pure montage. It ends with Rocky beating the Russian in Russia, and then the Russian audience starts cheering for Rocky because he just fought with so much fucking heart, goddammit. Rocky 5 is the worst movie in the franchise just because it's kind of boring. And they just make kind of weird decisions throughout it. I think them not even having a boxing match at all in it is weird. I understand what they're getting at. They brought back the director from the first Rocky movie to try and ground it out a bit, because Stallone directed 2 through 4. And obviously those got a bit more extreme as they went along. Rocky 5 is kind of just about Rocky realizing that he has like bad brain damage, so he can't box anymore. His son has grown up, and he's got a bit of a shaky relationship with his son because of just because of the boxing and everything. And then instead of spending time with his son and connecting to his son, he trains this other prize fighter to kind of become the next big thing, and ends in a big street fight on the street instead of an actual boxing fight like every other Rocky movie. Then Rocky 6 or Rocky Balboa is kind of like the legacy sequel, where Rocky deals with, being way past his prime, being having his wife Adrian, she's dead at this point, and he's got an adult son that he isn't really connected with. He's kind of just down on his luck at this point. He doesn't have any money left because Paulie lost all of it. So this is just kind of him as like a 50 or 60-year-old man going back into the ring and fighting the current heavyweight champion. And just kind of, it's much more of a realistic thing. I think Stallone wanted to give Rocky a much better send-off than Rocky 5 was. So this was kind of wrapping up the Rocky storyline in a much more appropriate way than Rocky 5. Then it goes on to the first Creed in 2015, which does have Rocky. It has Stallone in it, as he's kind of like Creed's mentor and Creed's Creed's boxing coach in it, and as much it is kind of continuing that legacy of Rocky Balboa in kind of finishing that Rocky storyline. This is about a new character. It is about Adonis Creed, who was the son of Creed from the original Rocky movies. What's his Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed. About Adonis Creed's character and about how he grew up without a father, really, because his dad died in the beginning of Rocky 4 by fighting Ivan Drago, and how he grew up with a lot of like just pent up anger and rage, which he used to become a really good boxer, which is how he runs into Rocky originally, and how they kind of like develop him as a fighter and kind of putting him into a position to become the heavyweight champion of the world. But it does go back to the Rocky 1 formula of just making it be about creating incredibly strong characters with incredibly strong relationships that make you care about the world outside of just the boxing. Boxing stuff is really well filmed. It was directed by Ryan Coogler, who is a fantastic filmmaker. Fruitvale Station is one of the best films of the 2010s, in my opinion. And I think that Creed is just an incredibly, incredibly well done film and a great continuation of the Rocky franchise that allowed Stallone to keep the Rocky character around, but not have to carry it on his shoulders anymore. Creed 2 I never watched in theaters. I actually watched it the day before I watched Creed 3, but it was actually much better than I expected it to be, because it doesn't just carry on the stories of Rocky and Creed, it also kind of humanizes the character of Ivan Drago. It makes him an actual real person, an actual real character, instead of just the weird like Terminator-like robot that he was in Rocky 4. Because in this he fights Adonis Creed fights his son Victor Drago. And it does kind of make Rocky, it kind of improves Rocky 4 in retrospect. Creed 2 does, in a way, by helping flesh out these characters to be real people. This wasn't directed by Ryan Coogler, it was directed by Stephen Capel Jr., who hasn't really directed much else besides that. So yeah, we'll see. But I think he did a fine enough job with it. It's shot well, it's a handsome film. But then it goes on to Creed 3, who was directed for the first time by Michael B. Jordan. It's his first directing gig, and Creed 3 does an interesting thing, which is it's the first Rocky movie that, besides Creed 1, it's the first Rocky movie that doesn't just follow on from the end of the previous film. Pretty much all of the other Rocky movies just kind of start up from the ending of the fight of the previous film. And Creed 3, instead of doing that, instead of starting with the heavyweight title at the end of Creed 2, starts with a flashback of Adonis and his childhood friend, who was a prize fighter and had hopes of going pro and finally getting a heavyweight shot of himself, having a night out where they go watch his friend go fight, and then some unfortunate things happen that night, which lead his friend, I want to get the character's name, Dame, to go to jail. And then what Creed has done is he's just kind of like hasn't contacted him, hasn't communicated with him in the 20 years that he's been in jail. He's just completely pushed out that part of his life, doesn't want to think about it. He's completely moved on. At this point, Creed and his wife, Bianca, and his daughter, Mara, are living the high life. Creed is retired. He said he doesn't want to box anymore. He's past that. He's now training this new guy, Felix, Chavez to become the new heavyweight champion, and then it also brings back like Victor Drago and who's the other guy? Some of the other fighters from the previous films in it as well. And they bring them back, and it does kind of feel like a celebration of the previous Creed movies in a way. But what happens is Adonis is living the high life. Everything seems to be going really well. There doesn't seem to be really issues until Dame comes back, because Dame wants to. Dame wants, as a favor for Creed not really being there for him, he wants the Rocky shot, which he references in the film. He wants that heavyweight title shot of his own. He's never fought a professional fight before, and he just wants the title shot. And Creed's like, that's not how it works. There's sponsors, you have to get funding for it, you have to get the purse, you have to get money. I can't just wave a magic wand and let it happen. So Creed's like, Dame's like, okay. And then something happens, and somehow, some way, he gets the shot. And then the film goes on like that, and it ends with the big Creed Dame fight. It's kind of spoilery, but that's how it's going to end. That's not really a spoiler. You know how it's going to go. So, saying that, despite it being kind of predictable, but I mean, it's a Rocky movie, you know what's happening, and it's just a boxing movie. There's only so many ways you can really tell these kind of stories. It's a really, really well done film. As I said with Creed 2 and even the first Creed, what the best part about the Rocky movies has always been the commitment to character over spectacle in a way. Obviously, I think Rocky 4 and 5 kind of stray away from that in a way. Probably Rocky 4 more so. Rocky 5's problem wasn't really the characters. But by just building incredibly strong characters and having incredibly tight scripts and screenplays that develop these characters in really interesting, really personable, really creative ways, it keeps this franchise feeling fresh. You want to see these characters. You want to be around them. They are interesting characters that have interesting personalities and are put in interesting situations, and it makes them work. I would love to see a Creed 4, or if you're gonna go the route, do a Amara series. Fuck it, I don't care. I'd watch that. So, and obviously, besides that, the filmmaking and the boxing scenes are incredibly exciting and really well done. Obviously, the first Rocky was, I think, maybe the first Hollywood film. I could be wrong, but I think it was the first Hollywood film to ever use a Steadicam, which allowed it to make the fighting scenes feel much more fluid and much more dynamic. Whereas older boxing films, they had to just put the camera outside the boxing ring and just watch them fight in a wide shot, which is fine. Like, they did creative ways of doing that, but the viscerality of being able to just like be in the fight feels so much better. And Michael B. Jordan does some interesting things with the final fight, which he shows the fight as it happens, but he also shows the fight that's going on like within the characters' heads. He uses a lot of like visual metaphors to show how the fight works. And I think that's a little, I don't know how to feel. It's kind of clunky at times, but it's such an interesting way to do that I really am not mad with him taking the chance. So, yeah, and, Michael B. Jordan gives a great performance in it. Tessa Thompson's always great. Jonathan Majors is great in it. I really don't have very many bad things to say about it. I think for a first-time film from a first-time director, directing himself as the star, I think Michael B. Jordan did a really, really good job with this. And I think I'd honestly just give it an 8 out of 10. I think it's a really solid film. I had a really good job. Good job. I had a really good time watching it. Good job, Michael B. Jordan.